Welcome, dear friends, to a story like no other. A tale of a princess, a prince, and a humble frog whose destinies intertwined to light up an entire kingdom. A story of love, courage, and the eternal battle between light and shadow. Before we dive deep into this epic journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of this incredible saga. Also, I'd love to know, where are you watching from right now? Where you are. Drop your location and time in the comments below, so we can connect across the world as this story unfolds. Now, settle in as we begin our tale. To the east of Nimara, rising above the cliffs and stretching across the wide valleys, lay the kingdom of light, Solarian. It was a kingdom carved from the sun itself, or so the old stories claimed. Here, the stones of the buildings were golden-hued, and the streets shimmered in the heat of the day. Towers reached for the heavens, each crowned with sunstone orbs that glowed even at night. Sunlight was worshipped, catalogued, studied, and celebrated in every festival where Namara whispered, Solarian roared. It was a land of industry and innovation, of heated debates in open courtyards and chariot races across arched bridges. Its people were known for their warmth, their boldness, and their pride. King Kalius, known as the Sun Lord, ruled Solarian with strength and spectacle. His armor gleamed like polished fire, and his voice could be heard echoing across the city during addresses to the people. He had 2 sons, or so the people believed. One was the crown prince, Orion, beloved by all, a paragon of strength and justice. The other was a name long forgotten, a shadow in a family of brilliance. Orion had grown beneath the weight of great expectation. He was trained in swordplay, diplomacy, and the study of light theory, the philosophical and magical principle that light carried memory, soul, and truth. Yet, as he matured, a restlessness brewed inside him, a need to find answers beyond what books and sunlit halls could offer. He began having dreams, strange, vivid ones, dreams of a mirror made of water, where his reflection was not his own. In these dreams, a voice, sometimes male, sometimes female, sometimes neither, would say, "The truth is not in the sun. Seek the reflection, seek the lake." And always, there was a frog, watching, waiting. Asterisk, though the kingdoms of water and light had never gone to war. Their histories were marked by deep distrust. Centuries ago, a border dispute over the shimmering glade nearly ignited a war that would have consumed both nations. Instead, a delicate treaty was brokered, the Treaty of Waves and Flame, which created an invisible line of peace across the glade. where no banners could be flown, and no weapons could be drawn. This glade now stood as neutral ground, tended only by the silent order of the reflectors, monks who served neither crown but recorded all truths. They lived between the worlds, meditating beside still pools and documenting visions seen during lunar eclipses. It was through this glade that the future would be shaped, though none could have known it. Asterisk, hidden deep within the temple of reflection, built into a cliffside on the border between kingdoms, there lay a forgotten prophecy carved into obsidian stone. Written in the ancient script of both kingdoms, it read, "When the moon weeps silver upon the sun, and love knows not the face it seeks, the frog shall speak, the prince shall fall, and the waters shall remember what the light forgot." Few remembered the verse, fewer still believed in it. But it had been written by the last oracle of Undalith, a woman who vanished into the lake centuries ago. Now, as fate began to stir in the hearts of two young royals, and a quiet frog looked on from the reeds, the prophecy would begin to awaken. Asterix, while Lyra wandered the lake's edge, humming songs passed down from water priestesses, and while Orion stood atop the Solarian sun temple, questioning the shape of his destiny, neither knew that their paths were already entwined. In the shadows of both kingdoms, whispers began to stir. A cloaked figure moved through libraries, tearing out pages. A merchant at the border began stockpiling mirrors of obsidian. And deep beneath the surface of Lake Cillian, something old, something forgotten, began to pulse with light. The kingdoms believed themselves at peace, but peace, like still water, hides the currents below. Asterisk, the story was not beginning. It had already begun, long ago, in lifetimes neither prince nor princess could remember. And though the sun still rose over Solarian, and the mist still danced above Nimara's lakes, something was shifting in the world. A ripple, a glimmer, a heartbeat in the dark dot, and somewhere nearby, a frog blinked. Asterisk. Long before the kingdoms of Nimara and Solarian carved their histories into stone and song. Long before royalty walked among the waters or beneath the sun. There were the primal forces, the original echoes, as the mystics of old called them. These echoes were neither gods nor creatures, but living stories that took form through belief, desire, and memory. One of the most powerful among these stories was that of the frog who waits a tale passed through generations. Always whispered, never shouted, in the kingdom of water. The legend was sacred. In the kingdom of light, it was forgotten, or perhaps buried. This is the tale as it survived, in fragments in lullabies, in forbidden scrolls, and in the mind of a girl named Lyra and a prince named Orion, neither of whom knew the full truth they were born into. The birth of the story, the oldest version of the tale, begins not with a frog, but with a mirror, not one made of glass or metal, but of living water, a pool so still and so ancient that it reflected not only faces, but souls. In that pool, deep within what would later become Lake Cillian, a child was once born, not of flesh, but of sorrow and starlight. This child had no name, no gender, no family. It simply existed, listening, watching, reflecting. Aurelios was curious, gentle, and endlessly wise. It had no ambition, no need for conquest or control. But it did have one weakness, an obsession with understanding love. Love fascinated Aurelios. It saw lovers come to the lake to confess, to weep, to heal. It listened to poems, to heartbreaks, to laughter. It watched entire lifetimes bloom and wither along its shores. So, one day, Aurelios made a choice to take a form that could walk among mortals, to feel what they felt. To love, it chose the shape of a human, a beautiful young person with shimmering skin like water under moonlight. And it stepped onto the shore during a festival where laughter echoed and lanterns floated like stars. There, Aurelios met a prince and a princess, twins, heirs to rival kingdoms, who had met in secret to negotiate peace. Their names have been lost to time, replaced in each retelling. But what matters is this: both fell in love with Aurelios, and Aurelios, for the first time, felt torn, for it loved them both. What followed was a tragedy, unable to choose. Aurelios begged the gods to allow all three to live in harmony. But the gods, bound by laws even they could not break, demanded a decision. One heart could be accepted, the other must be rejected. A jealous god, some say it was the god of fire. Others say it was the forgotten flame, cast down a curse, one that shattered Aurelios' form into a humble, small creature. A frog. The creature could not speak, could not explain, could not choose. Worse still, the memories of the twins were wiped clean. They returned to their kingdoms as strangers, living out their lives with a vague ache they could never name. The frog, however, remained. It returned to the mirror pool, watching the generations pass, watching history rewrite itself, waiting for a time when love could break the curse. Not love based on appearances or names or kingdoms, but a love that remembered beyond the veil of flesh and memory. And so the legend was born in Nimara. The tale evolved into the story of the Silent Watcher, a frog who appeared only to those destined for great sorrow or great love. Water priestesses believed the frog to be a guide between lifetimes, a marker of karmic crossing. When a child was born under the moon's crossing, the rare celestial event where moonlight touched the lake's surface in 7 unbroken beams, the priests watched carefully for signs of the watcher. Princess Lyra had been born under such a night, and though many assumed she was destined for greatness, the eldest water oracle, Dame Urhissa, wept when she saw the frog appear by Lyra's crib. "She will love," Urhissa whispered, "and she will suffer." Despite this warning, Lyra's life unfolded like a song. She was educated in poetry, taught to speak with fish and read the patterns of wind on water. But always, on the nights she felt most alone, the frog would appear by her window or near the lake's edge, unblinking. Still, she spoke to it like a friend. She named it Nyx, though the creature never responded, never left when she poured out her heart. When Lyra was 15, she asked the high priestess about the frog. "It waits," said the old woman. "It remembers. One day, so will you." In Solarian, the legend of the enchanted frog was scrubbed from official history. Light had no room for shadows, for unanswered riddles, for beings that could not be measured or catalogued. But in the backstreets of Sunreach, among the dusty stalls of forbidden booksellers, the tales survived in whispers. A single page from in ancient banned text, the refractions of time, held a cryptic passage. "Beware the frog that watches with the eyes of stars. It remembers what the sun tried to forget." Prince Orion, in his late teen years, discovered this text while searching for forgotten solar rituals. The words haunted him, and soon the dreams began. Dreams of lakes, of laughter, of a love he could not name. Always a frog watched from the edge of a pool. One night, in the temple of inner radiance, Orion confronted the High Luminarch, the spiritual leader of Solarian. "Why do we fear water?" he asked. "We do not fear it," replied the Luminarch. "We fear what it reflects." Orion understood nothing then, but the words nested in his mind like a seed waiting to bloom, a story told by time itself in both kingdoms. Across generations, different versions of the legend were told. A frog, who had once been a king of stars, a being of light who chose love over eternity, a creature cursed to watch reincarnated lovers find and forget each other again and again. Children were told to kiss frogs for fun. Lovers carved frogs into trees as signs of eternal devotion. And still, the real one, the watcher, Nyx Aurelios, remained, bound to the cycle. The curse would only break when two souls, broken and scattered across lifetimes, recognized each other, not with their eyes, but with their hearts. Now, centuries later, the frog lives again. Not as a symbol, not as a bedtime story, but as a presence. It follows Lyra. It appears in Orion's dreams. It returns to the place where it first loved and lost. It watches, and in the wind, above Lake Scillian, one might hear a whisper if they listen closely. When water meets light without fear, and a kiss is given not to a prince, but to a truth, then I shall be more than a frog again. But will Lyra remember? Will Orion see beyond the veil of royalty and legend? Will the cycle be broken or repeated once more? Time waits. The frog waits. The legend lives. Asterisk. A palace of echoes, the palace of Undulith, was a marvel built both above and beneath the waters. Its halls sang with the soft drip of condensation and the soft trill of aquatic birds nesting in open windows. Translucent curtains floated like jellyfish. Through wide corridors and marble floors reflected the ripple of sunlight filtered through the lake. But to Lyra, it was more like a prison. Not because she was mistreated, far from it. Her every need was met, her every question answered. Tutors taught her the language of river fish, the geometry of tides, the history of her kingdom etched into kelp scrolls older than most cities. She wore robes dyed in midnight hues and necklaces of freshwater diamonds, but her world was bound by expectation, not just royal protocol, but sacred destiny. To be born under the moon's crossing was to be considered not a person, but a prophecy. You are not just a girl, they told her. You are a thread in the loom of fate. No one asked if she wanted to be. The hunger for something real by the time Lyra was 9, she had already read the forbidden volumes of Mira lore. By 11, she could walk across certain still waters without sinking, using techniques passed down from the lotus walkers of old. By 13, she had danced with luminescent eels during the Festival of Echoes, a dance set to grant visions. What she had not done, however, was laugh until her stomach hurt. She had never been surprised. She had never fallen asleep in someone's arms or felt the electric jolt of being seen, truly seen. Her attendants adored her. Yes, but they adored the idea of her, not the quiet, restless child who stared too long into puddles or cried at night for reasons she could never explain. Even her mother, Queen Marilla, wise, powerful, and beloved, seemed distant, as if her crown had grown too heavy to allow closeness. When Lyra asked her once why she never laughed like the other palace women, Marilla only said, "Laughter is for those who do not carry the weight of prophecy." The friend at the water's edge was during one of her earliest solitary walks. along Lake Cillian's edge that Lyra first saw the frog dot. At first, she thought it was part of the landscape, a stone or a shadow, but it was unmistakably alive, small, green, still. It sat on a reed-framed rock, watching her with eyes that seemed to hold more than any animal should. She expected it to leap away. Instead, it remained. And the next day, it was there again. And the next dot, she began speaking to it, not in jest, but sincerely, instinctively. She told it her dreams, her fears, her doubts about being more symbol than person. She gave it a name, Nyx, after the mythic spirit of twilight. Sometimes, she imagined, it blinking in sympathy. Sometimes, she wept beside it without speaking a word. She once kissed it. After reading a children's tale about frogs turning into princes, she giggled, then felt foolish. And yet, the moment lingered in her mind. She told no one about Nyx. It was her only secret, her only real connection. The curse of the moonborner's Lyra matured. Her loneliness deepened. She was watched constantly, her every movement measured for signs of prophecy's fulfillment. The royal seer visited her quarterly, recording her dreams. The high oracle of the waters placed glyphs on her door, claiming she must not sleep without divine protection. When she questioned these rites, she was told, "You are not yours. You belong to the flow." It terrified her. She began to rebel in small ways, skipping lessons, sneaking food from the lower kitchens, pretending to misunderstand diplomatic lectures. But no punishment came, only concern. They thought her unwell, or worse, awakening. On her 17th birthday, she was gifted a mirror of obsidian framed in silver coral, a symbol of her coming of age. When she looked into it, she saw not her face, but a shimmer, as if something beneath the surface wanted to speak. She smashed it. The court was scandalized. But Queen Marilla simply said, "The water breaks what is not ready." The dream of the boy of light began a few weeks later, the dreams in them. She stood on a shore she didn't recognize, beneath a golden sun, unlike Nymara's silvery skies. Across the lake stood a boy, tall, proud, but with eyes full of sorrow. She couldn't see his face clearly, only that he was bathed in a radiant light. They never spoke, but they always reached toward one another. Each time she awoke, her heart ached, her hands trembled. The dreams left behind not fear, but longing, a feeling she couldn't explain. When she finally asked the royal seer what they meant, the woman paled. "The mirror soul has awakened," she said. "The thread is pulling taut." Lyra didn't understand, but in her heart, a truth stirred. Someone was missing. Someone she was meant to find. Someone who might understand her without explanation. Someone who, like her, had lived not a life, but a role, and who was tired of pretending it was enough. The visit to the shimmering glade, desperate for answers. Lyra did the unthinkable. She crossed into the shimmering glade, the neutral zone, between Nymara and Solarian. It was forbidden for royalty, sacred and dangerous. But Lyra had grown adept at invisibility within her own kingdom. She slipped past her guards, disguised in the robes of a water acolyte. The glade was unlike anything she'd known. Wild, untouched, and full of whispers. Pools of mirror water dotted the ground like scattered stars. The Order of the Reflectors lived here. Monks who served neither king nor queen, only truth. One of them, an old man with milky eyes, stopped her without turning. "You seek the one who sees you," he said. "How do you know?" "Because you walk like one who's been unseen your whole life." He brought her to a pool deeper than any she'd known. When she looked in, she saw the frog, and behind it, the boy from her dreams. He walks in light, you dwell in water, but the soul knows no borders. She wept. "What do I do?" she asked. "Wait or act. But know this, to find each other, one of you must lose everything." A princess, no Morila, returned to Nymara changed. She refused her next royal engagement. She burned the latest scroll of destiny left outside her chamber. And she wrote a single line in her private journal, a line she would one day speak aloud. "When the time came to choose, I would rather drown in truth than float in a lie." From her window, she saw Nyx waiting on the stone, and for the first time, she whispered, "Do you know him? Did you bring him to me?" The frog blinked once, and somewhere beneath the lake, something ancient stirred. Asterisk. Before he was a prince, he was a boy who ran through fields of fireflies, chasing dreams too big for his crown. And long before that, before memory itself, he was a whisper caught in a curse, a promise made beneath stars that no longer burned. His name was Orion of Solarian, heir to the sun-forged throne, child of a kingdom carved from light. But his legacy was more shadow than sun. The kingdom of light and Solarian, unlike Nymara, was not a place of water or whispering reeds. It was forged from sandstone, crystal, and gold-veined mountains that caught fire at dusk. The people believed in strength, legacy, and clarity, not prophecy, not myth. Orion was raised to lead, not to question. His father, King Vareth, ruled not with cruelty, but with unwavering expectation. A king must be an anchor, not a dreamer. Orion, however, had never felt solid. He was born under the phoenix sun, a rare and dangerous alignment set to burn away the false self and leave behind only truth. You will one day rise, the seers whispered, but only from ashes. It was a blessing. It was a curse. A boy with a hidden Merorian's early life was filled with tutors, sparring masters, and political lessons. He was taught to read body language like a general and speak diplomacy like a bard. His mind was sharp, his tongue sharper dot, but beneath the surface was another boy, one who looked too long at reflections in secret. He'd visit the ancient mirror hall, a relic from Solarian's earliest age, long abandoned. Inside, time felt still. He would sit for hours before its cracked mirrors, searching his own eyes for answers, and sometimes he would see things that weren't there. Not illusions, visions. He saw forests he had never walked, lakes that knew his name, and once, only once, a girl with eyes like storms, whispering something he couldn't hear. He kept it to himself. No one in Solarian believed in soul dreams. The weight of a perfect mask by the time Orion was 15. He had mastered the art of being who others needed. To his father, a proud heir to the nobles, a sharp mind. To the people, a shining symbol. But in his solitude, he ached. He began drawing not the banners and symbols of Solarian, but strange shapes and faces he could not name. A tree with silver roots, a frog wearing a crown, a hand reaching from water. He kept them hidden in a box beneath his bed. One day, his mother, Queen Alira, long believed cold, found them. She said nothing at first. Then, one night, she sat beside him and whispered, "You draw the between, the what, the realm of things not yet real, but already true." It was the first time someone had seen him, truly seen him. The curse beneath the crown when Orion turned 16. The Phoenix alignment returned, an event that happened only once in a generation. The priests of the Sunflame Temple insisted he undergo the trial of radiance, a ceremony meant to purify and solidify his destiny. It involved fasting, isolation, and exposure to an ancient mirror set to burn away the false self. They locked him in the sanctum of emberglass, a chamber with no light except that which he carried within. On the third night, the mirror cracked, and from its fracture, something emerged. Not a voice, not a creature, but a pulse. You are more than air. You are a thread, frayed at both ends. He collapsed. When he woke, he could no longer see his reflection. Not in water, not in metal, not in glass. His body remained. His thoughts remained. But something was missing. The transformation. For weeks, he remained hidden from the court. Rumors spread illness, madness, divine possession. His father said nothing, but his mother came each night with a candle and a poem. "The soul has seasons," she said. "What season is this?" "The one that grows in silence." Then, one morning, he awoke to find himself changed, not in thought, but in form. He was a frog, not metaphorically, not magically disguised. Transformed, panic swelled, but strangely, so did peace. There was no mirror to break, no throne to inherit, no mask to wear, only stillness, breath, the sound of wind in the reeds. He fled the palace, leaped through the golden fields, crossed hidden streams, vanished into the borderlands. No one followed. Years in hiding Gorian, though he no longer used the name. Lived as a frog for years. He explored the wilds, the glades, the forgotten ruins where light met water. And in his quiet, he remembered things he'd never learned. He began to dream of silver lakes, of a girl with a voice like falling rain, of a kingdom beneath the surface. He began to suspect he was not alone in his curse. One day, beside a lake he could not name, he waited, and she came. The girl from the visions, the princess who spoke not to people, but to stillness. She called him Nyx. He wanted to laugh. But frogs don't laugh. He listened. He stayed. He loved. Not romantically, not yet, but with the fierce devotion of one soul recognizing its echo in another. The pull of the thread. The dreams returned, clearer this time. He saw himself in human form, reaching across a lake, her hand outstretched, a glimmer of possibility, a choice, but the curse had rules. To break it, one must be chosen without expectation, not as a prince, not as a savior, but as a mystery loved, despite not being understood. And so he waited, for her to see more than a frog, waited for the world to shift, waited for the moment when destiny would pause and freedom might speak. The boy of light beneath the skin, the old monk of the shimmering glade, knew. You were born of fire, but your truth is water. Orion had long wondered, what if the curse was not punishment, but protection? What if being unseen was the only way to truly be seen? He watched Lyra grow, from lonely girl to burning woman. He saw her rebel, cry, laugh, question, and he felt the curse begin to stir. For the first time in years, his reflection shimmered, faintly on the water. He knew the time was near. The risk of becoming to become again, to shed the curse, would be to face everything he had left behind, his father's kingdom. The throne, the expectations, but also her dot. To return to his form would mean stepping back into a world that had no room for softness. Unless ... unless they created that room together. He watched her approach the lake one evening. Eyes full of storm, she whispered, "Do you know him? Did you bring him to me?" He blinked once, and silently he made a choice. If she kissed him again, not as a joke, not as a game, but in faith, he would return. Not as prince, not as prophecy, but as Orion, the boy of light, who had learned to find truth in shadow. The ancient scrolls whispered secrets not meant for mortal ears, words that carried the weight of kingdoms, the fate of souls, and the fracture of worlds. In the deepest vault, beneath the crystal spire, hidden by enchantments older than time itself, lay the prophecy of the twin flames, a secret so dangerous that to speak it aloud was to invite ruin. But secrets, like shadows, have a way of slipping through cracks. A scroll sealed in darkness, the prophecy was bound in scales of dragonfish, inked in starlight and shadow. Only the high oracle of the waters and the sunseer of Solarian knew its words. It spoke of two souls, one born of moonlight, the other of fire, destined to meet at the edge of worlds and either unite to heal the broken thread of reality, or sever it forever. When water meets flame beneath the eclipse of souls, the fate of the realms shall hang in the balance. No one dared to speak these words openly. To even whisper of the eclipse of souls was to tempt fate. The oracle's burden, the high oracle. An ageless woman with eyes like still lakes had guarded the prophecy for centuries. She had seen the rise and fall of kings, the shifting tides of magic, and the slow unraveling of old pacts. She knew Lyra was the moonborn. She knew Orion was the fireborn. But the prophecy had one final line, a warning: one shall be lost to save the other, and the threads of fate will be forever altered. It haunted her dreams, a secret meeting against her better judgment. The oracle convened a secret council beneath the waters of Lake Silian. Among the gathered were the Queen Marilla, the sunseer of Solarian, and the ancient monk from the shimmering glade. The room was lit only by phosphorescent algae and flickering candlelight. Their voices were hushed, heavy with fear. The question: should the prophecy be revealed to Lyra and Orion? Queen Marilla's voice trembled. They deserve to know, to choose. The sunseer shook his head. Choice is a luxury. The prophecy is a path paved by sacrifice. The monk added, cryptically, truth is a double-edged sword. Sometimes, to save the thread, one must sever the weave. The weight of knowing, the oracle finally decided to reveal the prophecy, but only to Lyra. On a night when the moon was full and the lake reflected 1,000 stars, Lyra was summoned to the deepest chamber of the palace. There, the oracle laid the scroll before her. "You are part of a story older than the stars. You and the boy of light, your fates are entwined. But know this, one will be lost, so the other may live." Lyra's breath caught, lost. How? The oracle only shook her head. "That is the secret you must uncover. But be warned, the path is perilous." Orion's silent struggle far away, in the shadows of Solarian. Orion's transformation was not just physical, but spiritual. He wrestled with a curse, with his lost reflection, and with the weight of the prophecy he had never seen, but somehow felt in every heartbeat. He knew his fate was linked to Lyra's. But what he did not know was that forces beyond them, jealous gods, ancient rivals, and forgotten powers, were moving to prevent their union. Whispers of rebellion among the nobles of both kingdoms. Rumors spread. Some believed the prophecy was a lie, a myth created to control the people. Others saw it as an opportunity, a way to seize power by controlling the destined heirs. Dark alliances formed in secret chambers and moonlit gardens. Assassins were hired, spies planted. The fate of Lyra and Orion was no longer theirs alone. A choice between love and due to Lyra sat by the lake, the prophecy heavy in her hands. She realized that the greatest battle was not against enemies, without, but within. Could she love a frog, a cursed boy, when duty demanded a queen? Could Orion reclaim his form and face a throne that might reject him? And if one had to be lost, which one would it be? The eclipse approaches the stars, aligned once more. The eclipse of souls was near. Legends said that during this rare event, the veil between worlds thinned, and the fate of all could be rewritten. Lyra and Orion would soon stand at the edge of destiny. The question lingered. Like a shadow, would their love be the light that mended the world, or the fire that consumed it? Asterisk. The lake lay still beneath a cloak of twilight, its surface a perfect mirror reflecting the first stars of evening. Mist curled softly over the water's edge, blurring the line between earth and sky, reality and dream. This was the place where destinies intertwined, where fate waited with bated breath. The summoning Lyra's heart thrummed in her chest as she approached the ancient lake. The oracle's words echoed through her mind. The prophecy, the choice she wore. Number crown, no royal robes, only a simple cloak that fluttered against the soft night breeze. The world she knew, The palace, the expectations, all fell away here. She was just a girl, vulnerable, fierce, uncertain, yet something stronger pulled her forward. Quiet insistence in her bones she could not deny. The path to the lake was lit by fireflies, their golden light like tiny stars guiding her steps. Somewhere in the distance, a soft croaking broke the silence, gentle, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. First glance says she reached the water's edge. A figure emerged from the reeds. Small, still, yet unmistakably alive. A frog, but unlike any she had ever seen. His skin shimmered faintly, like wet emeralds kissed by moonlight. His eyes held a depth that made her stop, not just the wildness of an animal, but something ancient and knowing. Lyra knelt beside him, breath caught in her throat. "Are you ... him?" she whispered. The frog croaked softly, then did something unexpected. He bowed his head. It was a gesture of respect, of recognition. The silence between words for a long moment. They simply regarded one another. No grand proclamations, no demands, just two souls meeting in a moment, suspended in time. Lyra reached out, her fingers trembling, and touched the cool water beside him. The frog shifted, and for a heartbeat, she saw a flicker, the faint outline of a boy beneath the water's surface. Echoes of the past memories flooded her mind, the visions she had seen, the mysterious drawings, the stories whispered in the palace corridors. Could this creature, so small and fragile, truly hold the fate of two kingdoms? Could the boy she had dreamt of be trapped inside this form? Her heart ached with a sudden clarity. She realized that the curse was more than magic. It was a test, a trial of trust and love beyond appearances. A leap of faith. Lyra's resolve hardened. If the prophecy was true, if this frog was truly Prince Orion, then she would face whatever the future held. She spoke softly. "I don't know if I can save you or if saving you will save me, but I believe there is more between us than fate." With that, she leaned forward and kissed the frog gently on the crown of his head. The transformation, for a moment, nothing happened. Then the water rippled, glowing with an otherworldly light. Orion's form shimmered, growing, changing bones, and skin reshaping in a dance of light and shadow. When the glow faded, where once sat a frog, now stood a young man, tall, regal, but with eyes still reflecting the depth. Lyra gasped, her hands covering her mouth. Orion smiled softly, his voice warm and low. "You believed. That was the true magic." The first touch, they reached out and took each other's hands. The world seemed to hold its breath for the first time. Lyra saw Orion not as a prince or a curse, but as a person, flawed, brave, and real. Orion saw in Lyra the strength to face what lay ahead, the courage to defy prophecy and expectation. In that moment, the lake around them shimmered with promise. The stirring shadows, but beyond the stillness. In the darkened forests and whispered halls of power, eyes watched and waited. The prophecy had been set in motion, and the forces that sought to control or destroy it were already moving. The union of frog, prince, and princess was no longer a secret. It was a revolution. The pact of the lake before they left. The oracle appeared, her eyes shining with a mix of sorrow and hope. You have taken the first step. The path ahead will test your hearts and wills. She handed them a delicate pendant, a crystal filled with water from the lake itself. This will bind you to the truth of the prophecy. Together, you will either mend the world or see it fall. Lyra and Orion exchanged a glance, knowing their journey had only just begun. The night before Dawnaz, they walked back to the palace. The first light of dawn breaking on the horizon. Both knew that everything had changed. They were no longer just players in a story. Written by others, they were the authors of their own fate. The frog had become a prince. The princess had become a warrior, and their tale was only beginning. Asterisk. Beneath the gilded halls of Solarian and the moonlit corridors of Nymara, a darkness stirred, whispered in secret chambers and shadowed alleys. The conspiracy sought to unravel what the prophecy foretold, to control the power of the twin flames, or destroy it utterly. Veils of deception, the nobles who feared change, and the desperate who craved power, formed an unholy alliance. They called themselves the Veil, a clandestine order weaving threads of betrayal and lies. Their goal, to prevent the union of Lyra and Orion, the prophesied healers or harbingers of doom. Meetings were held in catacombs, beneath the crystal spire and in the forgotten crypts of Nymara's marshes. Here, masks hid faces, and daggers hid intentions. The puppet masters, the center of the veil, were three figures. Lord Malrek, the cunning regent of Solarian, who sought the throne itself. Lady Velisandra, a sorceress with a grudge against the oracle and a thirst for a forbidden magic. Captain Reese, the leader of the Shadow Guard, loyal only to coin and chaos. They plotted to use the prophecy to their advantage. Of spies the veils, spies infiltrated both kingdoms. In Nymara, servants whispered in the queen's court, and in Solarian, nobles feigned loyalty while plotting rebellion. Orion's trusted advisors grew suspicious, while Lyra felt eyes on her at every turn. "We are not safe," Lyra confided to Orion one evening. "Trust no one," he replied, eyes hardening. The oracle's warning, the high oracle, sensed the danger and warned the pair in a secret meeting beneath the starlit skies. "Darkness moves faster than light," she said. "You must bind your strength not just with love, but with allies." She handed them ancient relics, a blade forged from starlight for Orion, and an amulet of moon water for Lyra. "These will protect you, but only if your hearts remain true." Betrayal within among their closest companions lurked a traitor, someone who would betray their trust for greed or fear. The tension grew unbearable as trust fractured and suspicion poisoned every interaction. The betrayal came. Suddenly, a nighttime ambush on Lyra's escort as she traveled through the forest. The rescue Orion, with his newfound strength and courage, lead a daring rescue. The battle was fierce, shadows clashing against light. The forest echoed with steel and sorcery. They escaped, but the cost was high. One of their allies was lost, a wound that left scars deeper than flesh. The gathering storm as the eclipse drew nearer. So did the Veil's attacks. Messages of warning arrived from distant lands. Ancient beasts stirred in the wilds, and strange magic pulsed beneath the earth. Orion and Lyra realized that their struggle was not just against human foes, but against the very fabric of fate itself. Forging the alliancing desperation, they sought help beyond borders from the rebels of the outer marsh, the mystics of the shimmering glade, and even reluctant nobles who opposed the veil. Trust was hard won, but slowly a coalition formed a fragile light against encroaching darkness. The price of power. Lyra and Orion learned that power came with a price. The relics they bore were potent but draining. Every use weakened their bodies and tested their minds. They would need to learn to rely not just on magic and weapons, but on each other and on the bonds they forged. A glimpse of tomorrow on the eve of the eclipse. The pair stood before the lake again, the place where their fates first intertwined. The moon shimmered. The stars held their breath. Lyra squeezed Orion's hand. "Whatever comes, we face it together." He nodded, eyes shining with resolve. Together. The shadow conspiracy had been revealed, but the true battle was yet to come. Asterisk. The night before the eclipse of souls was a silence heavier than any storm. Beneath the dark canopy of ancient trees and the cold gaze of distant stars, Lyra and Orion faced the crucible that would test their love. courage, and very souls. The oracle's ultimatum summoned once more to the depths of the crystal spire. The high oracle's voice was grave and unwavering. The trial of shadows awaits you. It is a passage through darkness where your fears, your doubts, and your secrets will be laid bare. Only those who emerge with their hearts unbroken may hope to fulfill the prophecy. The chamber was suffused with a pale, shimmering light. Walls, carved with ancient runes, seemed to pulse with unseen energy. Stepping into darkness, hand in hand, Lyra and Orion entered the chamber's heart. The floor beneath them dissolved into a swirling void, and the air thickened with magic dots. Suddenly, they were cast into separate realms, illusions crafted by the trial to test their deepest selves. Lyra's descent. Lyra found herself alone in a barren wasteland, a mirror of her inner fears. The sky was a burning red, and shadows whispered her failures. Her doubts, voices echoed around her. You are not strong enough. You will lose him. Your love is a lie. Visions of Orion in pain, distant and cold, tore at her heart. She fought to silence the voices, to find her inner strength amid the torment. Orion's abusing another realm. Orion faced a twisted reflection of himself, a monstrous frog, corrupted and wild. The illusion spoke. You are cursed, unworthy of her love. Your fate is despair. Memories of his transformation, of his lost identity, surged like waves. But Orion clung to the hope Lyra had given him. His love was his anchor. The temptation both were offered dark bargains, power in exchange for surrender, freedom at the cost of sacrifice. Lyra was shown a vision where she could rule alone. The prophecy rewritten by her hand. Orion was tempted, with a chance to shed his curse forever, but only if he abandoned Lyra. The breaking point, their hearts ached with loneliness and temptation. Doubt gnawed at their resolve, but deep within, the bond forged at the lake called them back. Through the void, their voices reached each other. Lyra, I believe in us. Orion, I will not give up. Reunion in the void, the swirling darkness. Parted as they found each other, their hands clasping tightly. Together, their light grew stronger, banishing shadows and breaking the illusions. The void transformed, no longer a place of despair, but a realm of hope. The oracle's judgment back in the crystal spire. The oracle awaited. She studied them, eyes shining with ancient wisdom. You have faced the trial of shadows and emerged unbroken. The prophecy's true power lies not in magic or fate, but in the strength of your hearts. She revealed a final truth. The prophecy was not a sentence, but a choice to heal or destroy the realms. A new understanding, Lyra and Orion realized that the trial was a lesson in trust and sacrifice. The real test lay ahead. To unite their kingdoms and face the coming darkness together. But now, with their bond unshaken, they felt ready. The calm before the storm as dawn broke over the kingdoms. The couple prepared for what was to come. The trial of shadows had forged them into more than prince and princess. They were now the twin flames, the last hope against the encroaching night. Asterisk. With the trial of shadows behind them and the eclipse of souls fast approaching, Lyra and Orion knew the time had come to unite more than just their hearts. They needed to bring together an alliance powerful enough to stand against the gathering. Darkness, a call to allies. The first step was a journey across both kingdoms to seek the aid of old friends and wary strangers alike. From the towering spires of Solarian to the misty groves of Namara, their path was lined with challenges, distrust, political rivalries, and centuries of old wounds. Yet, the promise of unity and hope kindled a flame in even the coldest hearts. The rebels of the outer, Martian, the tangled wetlands where few dared to tread. The rebels held their refuge, once outlaws and misfits. They had become a force of fierce independence. Lyra and Orion approached them not as royals demanding loyalty, but as equals asking for trust. The rebel leader, a fierce woman named Mara, was skeptical. Why should we risk our lives for crowns and prophecies? Lyra's answer was simple and honest, because if the prophecy fails, all of us will fall, kings and rebels alike. The mystics of the shimmering glade beyond the marshes lay, the ancient forest where the mystics dwelled, keepers of forgotten wisdom and primal magic. The mystics were elusive, speaking in riddles and dreams. But their power was undeniable. Orion presented the amulet of moonwater, and after a test of spirit and intent, the mystics agreed to aid the cause. The reluctant nobles in the glittering courts of Solarian, some nobles still clung to fear and old rivalries. Lyra and Orion faced cold shoulders and veiled threats. But when the shadow of the Veil conspiracy became known, the balance began to shift. A few brave lords and ladies broke ranks, pledging secret support, forging the pact under the boughs of the oldest tree in the shimmering glade. The alliance was forged. Leaders gathered, voices strong despite doubts and fears. They swore oaths not just to crown and kingdom, but to a shared destiny. Orion lifted his blade of starlight, and Lyra held the amulet high. Together, they declared, for the realms, for the future, for the light that binds us all. Training and preparationalize, trained in the arts of war and magic. Rebels learned discipline. Nobles learned humility. Lyra and Orion led by example, sparring with warriors, studying ancient texts, and meditating with mystics. The bonds between them deepened, strengthened by shared purpose. Spies in the shadows yet, even as they prepared. The Veil's spies prowled unseen. Encrypted messages warned of attacks, sabotage, and betrayal. The Alliance knew vigilance was key. Their greatest battle might be within, a moment of peace amid the turmoil. Lyra and Orion stole a quiet moment. By the lake, the place their journey had begun. The water reflected stars and hope. They spoke softly of dreams, fears, and the life they hoped to build beyond the coming war. Their love was a beacon, steady and true. The eclipse draws near with every passing day. The eclipse of souls neared. The Alliance stood ready, a fragile, shining hope against the storm, the fate of kingdoms, of love, and of worlds balanced on a knife's edge. Asterisk. The day of the eclipse of souls dawned under an ominous sky. The sun and moon locked in celestial embrace. Across the realms of Solarian and Nymara, armies gathered. Magic crackled in the air, and the fate of all hung by a thread. The gathering. Storm at the front lines, Lyra and Orion stood side by side, their eyes scanning the horizon. The Alliance was vast but uneasy warriors from the marshes, mystics from the glades, nobles in shining armor, and their own loyal guards. The tension was palpable. "This is the moment we've prepared for," Orion said, voice steady but fierce. "Together we stand as one." The Veil's onslaught from the shadows. The Veil's forces emerged. Cloaked assassins, corrupted beasts, and sorcerers wielding dark magic. Lord Malrek led the charge, his cold smile cutting through the dawn. Mist. "They think love and light can save them," he sneered. "But only darkness endures." Clash of light and shadow steel met steel in a thunderous roar. Magic exploded like storms, lighting the battlefield in surreal colors. Lyra wielded her amulet's power, sending waves of moonlit energy that healed and protected. Orion's starlight blade was a beacon, slicing through shadow and despair. The turning tide as the battle raged. It seemed the Veil's forces might overwhelm the Alliance. But then, from the heart of the shimmering glade, the mystics unleashed their ancient magic, a surge of nature's wrath and renewal. The rebels fought. With newfound fury, the nobles rallied, and hope rekindled. The duel of fate sat the center of chaos. Lyra confronted Lady Velisandra. Their battle was fierce, light clashing with dark spells, weaving a deadly dance. Orion faced Lord Malrek in a duel that shook the ground beneath them. Each strike carried the weight of prophecy, each move a question of destiny, sacrifice, and salvation. In the midst of chaos, a shadow loomed. Captain Reese struck at Lyra, a poisoned blade aimed at her heart. Orion intervened, taking the blow meant for her. His blood spilled on the sacred ground, but his spirit blazed brighter. Lyra's tears mingled with the earth as she channeled the power of their bond, unleashing a wave that shattered darkness. The eclipses cast the sun and moon fully overlapped. A radiant light burst from Lyra, and Orion, the twin flames ignited. The battlefield fell silent. The darkness peeled away, and a new dawn was born. The Veil's forces fled or surrendered, their power broken. Aftermath, the cost was high. Lives lost, kingdoms forever changed. But from the ashes rose a promise, a future forged in unity, love and courage. Lyra and Orion, weary but victorious, stood before their people, symbols of hope and renewal. A new era begins. The eclipse had tested them all, but it had also healed ancient wounds. Together, they would rebuild not just their kingdoms, but the world. Their story was no longer just prophecy, it was legacy. Asterisk. The aftermath of the battle of the eclipse was a quiet storm of rebuilding, mourning, and renewal. Though the war was over, the wounds it left behind were deep, not just in the land, but in the hearts of all who had survived. The broken lands and healing hands, the kingdoms of Solarian and Nimara lay scarred. Villages were razed, forests burned, and rivers tainted by the dark magic wielded by the Veil. Lyra and Orion took to the task of healing with unwavering determination. They traveled together to the hardest hit places, bringing not just aid, but hope. Lyra's moonwater amulet glowed softly as she mended broken spirits, while Orion's starlight blade cut through lingering shadows of despair. The mystics and rebels worked alongside the royal forces, united by the shared vision of a new world, rising from the ashes, forging bonds stronger than blood in the face of devastation. Old animosities faded. Nobles and rebels sat side by side, sharing stories and songs around campfires. They planted trees where forests had fallen, rebuilt schools and temples, and renewed trade routes torn apart by war. Lyra and Orion encouraged these efforts, knowing that true peace required more than treaties. It required trust. The promise of the twin flames in a ceremony held under the newly healed skies. The couple reaffirmed their vow to protect their people and the fragile peace they had won. The oracle spoke, her voice carrying the weight of ages. The prophecy was never about power or fate alone, but about the strength of love to bind all things. Let this promise be a beacon for generations. Lyra and Orion pledged to rule with wisdom and compassion, ruling not as monarchs above their people, but as guardians among them. The challenge ahead, despite the hope. Darkness lingered in hidden corners. Some remnants of the veil plodded in silence, nursing old grudges. The healing process was slow, and challenges remained economic hardship, distrust, and the scars of war. Lyra and Orion prepared for the long journey ahead, aware that peace was a garden that required constant tending. New dawn for aloe's seasons past. The kingdoms flourished again. New festivals celebrated unity, and children grew up knowing the story of the twin flames who dared to face the darkness. The story of a frog who became a prince, a princess who believed in love, and the power they found together. Their legacy was no longer just legend. It was living, breathing hope. Asterisk. With the kingdoms slowly healing and peace gradually returning, Lyra and Orion understood that their victory was only the beginning. The true challenge was to ensure lasting peace and to protect their world from future darkness. To do this, they sought knowledge long buried in the forgotten histories of the ancient guardians, a legendary order said to have once safeguarded the realms with wisdom and power beyond. Imagination, unearthing forgotten lore. The tale of the ancient guardians had become little more than a myth in recent generations. Stories told of a time when these protectors could command the forces of nature and weave magic so potent it could shape reality itself. But their order had mysteriously vanished centuries ago, leaving behind relics and ruins scattered across the land, driven by the oracles, urging and their own desire to strengthen the realm's defenses. Lyra and Orion embarked on a quest to rediscover the lost knowledge. They summoned the mystics of the shimmering glade and the rebels familiar with the wild, untouched places where ancient secrets might sleep. The map of stars in a hidden chamber beneath the crystal spire. The oracle revealed a celestial map etched into stone, a guide to the resting places of the guardian's relics. The map was fragmented, pieces scattered across distant lands, each protected by trials designed to test the worthy. Together, Lyra and Orion planned their journey, understanding that this would be a path filled with danger, mystery, and discovery. They prepared not only their armies, but also their minds and spirits. Journey to the forgotten. Temples, their first destination, was the temple of echoing winds, perched atop the jagged peaks of the Stormspire Mountains. The temple, once a sanctuary of wisdom, was now guarded by natural traps and restless spirits of the past, navigating through fierce storms and treacherous cliffs. Lyra and Orion's determination never wavered. Within the temple's heart, they faced trials that tested their courage, intelligence, and unity. Only by trusting one another and combining their unique strengths could they succeed. The relic of binding light, the temple's core. They discovered. The relic of binding light, crystalline orb, said to hold the power to strengthen bonds between allies and to shield hearts from deceit. The orb pulsed softly in their hands, resonating with their own twin flames. Lyra held the orb aloft, feeling warmth spread through her chest. This relic would be invaluable in keeping their alliance strong and protecting the realms against manipulation by lingering enemies. Secrets in the Forest of Whispers. Next piece of the map led them to the Forest of Whispers, a place where trees seemed to murmur ancient secrets and shadows moved with purpose. Here, the mystics took the lead, interpreting the forest's riddles and guiding the group safely through. Deep within the forest lay the shrine of the eternal bloom, a place of powerful, healing magic. The relic hidden here was the blooming Terra, vial containing a magical elixir capable of rejuvenating both land and spirit. Guardians, legacy, and lessons throughout their quest. Lyra and Orion learned much not only about the relics, but about the guardians themselves. Their strength came not from power alone, but from wisdom, sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to protect all life. The ancient trials reminded them that true leadership required humility and compassion. These lessons became as precious as the relics themselves, a warning from the past among the relics. They uncovered a faded prophecy inscribed on a stone tablet, warning of a shadow reborn, a darkness that would arise if balance was lost again. This revelation underscored the need to prepare not just for peace, but for vigilance. The ancient guardians had known that evil could never be fully eradicated, only held at bay by eternal watchfulness and unity, returning home, stronger armed. With newfound knowledge and relics, Lyra and Orion returned to their kingdoms with renewed purpose. The relics became symbols of hope and resilience, integrated into rituals and defenses. The alliance grew deeper, strengthened by the wisdom of the past and the promise of the future. Together, they vowed to honor the ancient guardians' legacy, to be protectors not just of their thrones, but of the very essence of life. Asterisk. Peace had settled like a gentle blanket over the kingdoms of Solarian and Nymara. The land bloomed, the people thrived, and the legacy of the twin flames, the love and courage of Lyra and Orion, was etched into every heart and stone. Yet, beneath this fragile tranquility, an ancient darkness stirred once more. Unseen, but not forgotten, whispers in the night it began with whispers soft, almost imperceptible murmurs carried by the wind through the villages and forests. At first, no one paid them much heed, mistaking them for the rustling of leaves or the sighs of tired travelers. But soon, the whispers turned to unsettling dreams and uneasy feelings, spreading like shadows creeping at the edges of light. The mystics, attuned to the unseen energies of the world, sensed the disturbance before anyone else. In the shimmering glade, their chants faltered, and the ancient trees seemed to shudder. The elders convened urgently, poring over scrolls and prophecies, seeking signs that the shadow reborn, the threat foretold by the ancient guardians, was awakening. A new threat emerges, meanwhile, in the dark corners beyond the reach of the kingdoms. Remnants of the veil gathered in secret. Though scattered and weakened, their resolve hardened like forged steel. Their leader, a mysterious figure known only as the Shade, had risen from the ashes of defeat. His mind, a labyrinth of vengeance and shadowed magic. The Shade was no ordinary foe. He wielded the forbidden powers of the void, twisting light and matter to his will. His agents infiltrated towns, sowing discord and fear, rekindling ancient rivalries and mistrust. Like a poison, the darkness spread quietly, infecting hearts and minds. The first signs of corruption reports came from border villages' crops withering. Inexplicably, animals acting strangely, and people falling ill with strange maladies. The healer's remedies failed, and fear grew like wildfire. Lyra and Orion dispatched their trusted allies to investigate, but answers were elusive. One night, scouting party returned with a chilling tale. Shadows had risen from the earth, twisting into terrible shapes, attacking without mercy. The forces of darkness were no longer content with hiding. They sought to reclaim the realms. A fractured alliance, the uneasy peace began to crack. Old wounds and suspicions resurfaced as nobles debated strategies. Rebels questioned loyalties, and mystics warned of impending doom. The alliance forged in the fires of the eclipse began to falter under the weight of fear. Lyra and Orion understood that their leadership would be tested not by battlefields alone, but by the fragile threads holding their people together. They called a council. inviting leaders from all corners to reaffirm their commitment. The burden of leadership, the council, tensions ran high. Voices clashed, accusations flew, and the memory of past betrayals haunted the room. Yet, through calm words and honest appeals, Lyra and Orion slowly restored unity. Orion reminded them, "Our strength is not in weapons alone, but in the bond we share. We must stand as one, else the darkness will consume us all." Lyra added, "The shadows thrive on division and doubt. Together we are the light they fear, seeking the lost guardians, realizing that the relics and knowledge of the ancient guardians were their best hope." Lyra and Orion sent envoys to uncover more secrets. The quest to find hidden sanctuaries, forgotten spells, and ancient allies became urgent. The mystics delved deeper into their archives, while Orion trained new warriors in the arts of light and shadow. Lyra journeyed to distant lands to seek forgotten wisdom, guided by dreams and visions. The growing darkness, as preparations continued, the shade's power grew. Entire villages vanished overnight, swallowed by creeping shadows. The land itself seemed to groan under the weight of corruption. Lyra and Orion often found themselves awake in the quiet hours, contemplating the coming storm. Their love was a beacon, but even the brightest light struggles against overwhelming darkness. A call to the people in a powerful speech before their gathered allies and citizens. Lyra declared, "The shadows may stir, but we will not falter. Our unity is our shield, and our love, our sword. Stand with us, and together we will face the night." The people, inspired and fearful, rallied to their cause, forging bonds that transcended old divisions. The calm before the tempest, as the kingdoms braced for what was to come. The sun set on a world poised on the edge of shadow and light. The next battle would not only decide their fate, but the fate of all life entwined in the prophecy. Lyra and Orion prepared for the fight of their lives, ready to face the darkness anew, stronger and wiser than before. Asterisk. The chill of approaching doom hung heavy in the air as Lyra and Orion led their people into the heart of the growing shadow. The darkness was no longer a distant threat, had taken shape. A living, breathing force with a will to consume all. Light, descend into the abyss, guided by cryptic visions and the oracle's warnings. Lyra and Orion set out on a perilous journey to the source of the corruption, a place whispered of only in the oldest legends, the abyssal hollow. This dark chasm, hidden beneath the ruins of an ancient fortress, pulsed with malevolent energy. It was said to be the cradle of the shadow reborn, a nexus where light dared not linger. A world turned black as they approached the hollow. The world seemed to warp around them. Trees twisted into grotesque forms. The sky dimmed beneath an eternal twilight, and the air tasted bitter. Even Orion's starlight blade dimmed, and Lyra's moonwater amulet flickered uncertainly. The ground beneath their feet was cracked and lifeless, and eerie whispers echoed through the oppressive silence. Confronting the Shadat, the hollow's core awaited the shade, his form shifting like smoke and shadow, eyes burning with cold fury. You dare challenge me again, the shade, hissed voice like a blade. I will drown your light and remake the world in darkness. Lyra and Orion stood firm, their bond the only shield against the overwhelming dread. Battle of souls, the clash was not merely physical. The shade unleashed waves of void energy, trying to fracture their unity and seed doubt. Lyra's healing light battled against corruption, while Orion's blade cut through illusions and despair. Every strike was a test of will, every moment a battle to keep their hearts linked. Revelations of the past during the battle, memories flooded there, mind's visions of the ancient guardian's final stand, sacrifices made to seal away the darkness long ago. They understood that the shade was once a guardian corrupted by his own fear and ambition, twisted by his desire to control fate. This revelation added sorrow to their resolve, knowing that darkness could arise even from the brightest light. The power of unity drawing strength from their love and the relics they had recovered. Lyra and Orion combined their powers in a magnificent display of radiant energy, the twin flames merging into a single beacon that pierced the shadow. The shade screamed, his form unraveling under the pure light. Sacrifice and triumph, but victory came at a price, to seal the darkness away once more. Living ward at the hollow's heart, a guardian of the fragile balance between light and shadow. Lyra's tears fell as she promised to keep his memory alive and to rule with the wisdom they had gained. A kingdom united, the hollow sealed. Light returned to the land, and the realms began to heal once again. Though Orion was gone in body, his spirit lived on in the people and the land. Lyra, now both queen and guardian, led her people into a new year one, where vigilance, love, and sacrifice were forever honored. Legacy of the twin flames, their story, etched into songs and legends, became a timeless reminder that even in the deepest darkness, love could ignite, a light strong enough to endure. The heart of the darkness was no longer a place of fear, but a symbol of hope, sacrifice, and eternal courage. A new dawn for the kingdoms in the years following the great battle. Lyra dedicated herself to rebuilding not only the lands, but the hearts of her people. She instituted schools where the wisdom of the ancient guardians was taught, blending magic and knowledge to nurture a generation prepared to face whatever challenges might arise. Cities blossomed with art, music, and vibrant marketplaces, while the once war-torn villages thrived under new governance. Unity was the cornerstone of this era, and the bonds forged in struggle held stronger than ever. Remembering Orion's physical presence was no longer with them. His spirit was felt everywhere. Monuments and shrines were built in. His honor symbols of his sacrifice and the eternal light he represented. Lyra often visited these places, drawing strength from memories of their love and the promises they shared. She carried his legacy forward, ruling with kindness, wisdom, and courage. Guardians of the future. The relics of the ancient guardians became sacred treasures, entrusted to a new order of protectors sworn to uphold peace and balance. This new generation, inspired by Lyra and Orion, trained not only in combat, but in compassion, empathy, and stewardship of the world. The mystics, warriors, and scholars formed an unbreakable alliance, ready to face shadows, yet unseen with the same bravery. Their predecessors had shown Dot the power of stories across the lands. Bards sang of the twin flames. Their tale became more than a legend. It became a guiding light, a moral compass for rulers and common folk alike. Children grew up hearing of the Frog Prince, who revealed his true self through love, of the princess who believed in the impossible, and of their triumph against darkness. Through unity, harmony between kingdoms, the alliance between Solarian and Nymara matured into a lasting peace, built on mutual respect and shared destiny. Trade, culture, and knowledge flowed freely between the realms, enriching both and creating a tapestry of diverse yet harmonious peoples. The wounds of war faded, replaced by hope and cooperation. The eternal flame in the heart of the crystal spire. A new ritual was born, the ceremony of the eternal flame. Each year, the people gathered to light a flame, symbolizing love, courage, and the enduring spirit of the twin flames. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could be rekindled by those who dared to believe. Lessons for all time Lyra's reign became a beacon of wisdom. Her teachings emphasized that true power comes not from dominion over others, but from kindness, understanding, and the courage to face one's fears. She spoke often of sacrifice, unity, and the delicate balance between light and shadow, ensuring that the past would never be forgotten, a future bright with promise, the sun set on her reign. Lyra prepared a new generation to lead a council of wise leaders, brave warriors, and gifted mystics who would carry the legacy forward. Her heart was full of hope, knowing that the love she and Orion shared had created a foundation strong enough to withstand any darkness. A story never ending, the tale of the frog, the prince and the princess, was far from over. It lived on in every heart that chose love over fear, unity over division, and light over shadow. Their legacy was eternal, a testament to the power of love and the strength of light to illuminate even the deepest darkness.